Welcome, educators! The following video is a session from the Science News Learning, formerly Science News in High School's webinar series. This program provides the Society for Science's award-winning journalism and standards-aligned lesson plans to public middle and high schools for free to support educators in building engaging, real-world science curricula that bring alive core concepts with the most recent advancements in STEM. The Society for Science is a nonprofit membership organization dedicated to expanding scientific literacy, effective STEM education, and scientific research. If you'd like to reach out to any of the presenters or learn more about the resources discussed, please contact snlearning@societyforscience.org.
I want to start off by saying thank you so much for being here tonight for our final Teacher to Teacher webinar of the year. And once again, we have an incredible lineup of teachers from all over the country, and together they're really teaching across the breadth of science as well. So our hope is that something today that they talk about or a worksheet that they share will inspire you to do something in your own classroom as early as maybe tomorrow if you're looking for some lesson plans, or if not that soon, then maybe even next week. And so I'll start off just with a brief introduction. I am Anna Rhymes, and I oversee the Science News in High Schools program. And just a little bit about my background. Before I got to the Society about 4.5 years ago, I taught STEM in Washington, D.C. for 10 years. And I am also joined tonight by, I would say, my partner in crime on the Science News in High Schools program, Raina Van Dyne. Raina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi everyone, I'm Raina Van Dyne. I'm the Associate Specialist on the program. I've been with the Society for over 2 years now, and before that I was a middle school librarian in Wisconsin.
Okay, awesome. So here is our all-star lineup for today. We will be hearing from Linda Singley, first, who is a chemistry, physics, and earth space science teacher in Greencastle, Pennsylvania. And then after Linda speaks, Stephanie Jones will have her presentation, and she teaches biology, chemistry, and environmental science in Atlanta, Georgia. And finally, we will have Pradip Misra, who teaches biology, chemistry, physics, and earth and space science in Baghdad, Arizona. And so they will all be talking about how they've used and integrated the Science News in High Schools resources into their own classrooms with their students this year. And then you can see at the bottom of the slide here, we will have one final touch point this year. On May 13th, we're going to have an SNHS office hour, and you can come on in at 7 p.m. Eastern time and ask questions either about the renewal process, accessing or finding specific resources, and really anything else. If there are other program opportunities that you'd like to talk about, we'd be happy to chat with you about those. You can also use this time to collaborate with other educators. So you could pop on at 7 p.m. and we could put you into smaller groups, and you could chat about what's going on even just in your classroom at this time. So we'd love to see you on May 13th there at 7 p.m. And then the one other quick housekeeping note kind of before we get started is that if you wouldn't mind, please turning off your videos just during the presentations, because we're going to be recording and we'd like to post this up on our website so that that other educators are able to access the video and use the content. Okay. So, I guess we have some sort of editing feature going on here on our slides. I forgot you all are high school teachers and deal with this all the time this year. So we're going to start off before the presentations just with a really brief programmatic overview of a couple of the resources so that you're aware of where you can find them when the presenters speak about them. And so we'll start off with the programmatic goal, and I'll just kind of give you a little bit of my own perspective from my teaching experience. And that is really that it is challenging to find meaningful applications of core concepts that you're teaching in the classroom. These applications are often key to student learning and retention of the information that we're trying to teach students. They also give students a reason to really care about the information and ultimately understand it better. And that's really what the Science News in High Schools program is all about. We're here to boost STEM literacy for high school students. And the goal there is to encourage you all to incorporate science journalism into your regular curricula. And then essentially what that allows you to do kind of seamlessly is to get students to connect what they're learning in class, those key curricular concepts, to the news and also phenomena in the world around them. So not just the full world, but also to their local community.
And I'll run through just a brief overview of the program resources. So every school in the program gets 10 print copies of each issue of Science News during the program year. You also get year-round access to both the Science News and the Science News for Students online resources at sciencenews.org and sciencenewsforstudents.org, respectively. The biggest difference between these publications is the reading level. So Science News for Students is written around for a middle school reading level for grades 5 and up. And then Science News is written for the general public, but has readability scores grades 9 and up. A cool feature of both articles or both publications is that all of the articles have links to citations at the bottom of the page. And these link to the primary research articles, which are sometimes open source. So this is a great way to get your students reading primary research articles. A cool thing about Science News for Students is that the articles have power words at the bottom of the page that are vocabulary words from the article. And Pradip will talk about how he uses these in his classroom in his presentation. Another resource we have is an Edmodo group with other educators, just to share best practices of using the resources in your classroom and ideas. We also send out a weekly programmatic newsletter on Friday mornings that has our most recent educational content, as well as other opportunities from the Society. And finally, you get access to our digital educator guide library that's full of our lesson plans that are paired to the Science News and Science News for Students articles. And Anna will talk more about those now.
All right, so yes, so first off, did you know that these exist? We have a whole library of next generation standards aligned lesson plans and student worksheets, so already created for you, that are related to a specific Science News article that's generally from the most current issue of the magazine. And our goal really is to highlight the core STEM content that's covered in the article, as well as to identify cross-curricular nature of the research that is being covered, that's being written about. The types of lesson plans that we create include comprehension questions and also answers associated with those, discussion prompts, and then also activities that are hands-on and allow students to really kind of be an inquiry-based lesson plan. So what you can do in order to access these is do a keyword search in our digital archive. It is www.sciencenews.org/SNHS. And you can type in a key concept or topic that you're looking to find content for. Look at the lesson plans, and all of those will be paired to Science News articles. So it's a nice way to really get to an article that has an associated lesson plan with it. Then, as Raina already mentioned, every Friday morning we send out an e-newsletter with the latest plans that we've produced for you. And it's a really nice way and an easy way to access aggregated content around a specific science theme. And Linda actually has a nice flow diagram in her presentation that outlines how she manages the content on a week-to-week basis that comes in from the newsletters. All right, and so all of our presenters today, again, will be sharing specific examples that they have used with their students. And we hope that, again, you either take away a specific lesson plan, a worksheet, or you're inspired to search the archives, either the lesson plans or the articles for material that you can cover in even this year's curricula, if not for next year as well. So with that, I'm going to turn the session over to Linda and she can get started. One other quick note is if you have questions along the way, please go ahead and put them in the chat and we will aggregate them and we'll have one larger question and answer session at the end of the presentation. All right, Linda, it's all yours.
Hi, I'm Linda Singley. I'm also a goat raiser, as you can tell. And today I just uploaded another link to one of the articles that came in the news magazine last week about the atomic energy development. So everything is really current. In fact, so current, I just got done doing it before I started tonight. This is the topic of my presentation, and it's about making connections from the concepts and what you read about in the magazine up until the kids develop an understanding for it through various attachments and connections with the content. So this is a little bit about the school where I teach. We're not very big. We're pretty rural, and we take in the township as well as the town. And one of our big selling points or science advantages is that we have an old farm that was put on the historic register at some point and then turned over to the school where we can do interdisciplinary studies in chem and physics, bio, all levels from elementary through high school, and even historical artwork and things like that that are there in architecture. So there's a picture of that place. Here is our current teaching, or my current teaching assignment. It's been adjusted at least 3 times in the last year, and for the fall, they're looking at changing it yet again. So things that I can use in a variety of scheduling situations, both hybrid and face-to-face, and online are something that's really good. And this Science News has provided that opportunity, and it lets the kids access things from home too if I can get it into the learning management system in the right format. So that's a rough look at how it is right now. And then this is the flow chart that Anna was referring to. Um, you can just read through it. I get the print edition and I hand it out. It comes to my mailbox. I hand it out to our faculty. And then whatever comes in the email on Friday, I go through it and I have a folder right on my desktop that I put it in there so I can go back to it conveniently without having to dig through folders. And then if I see anything in there that looks good in the hard copy, I'll go to the Friday email and then see if it has anything linked to it. And if it is linkable and if I can find other things, then I can put them into another folder related to the class. And then our current research opportunities, since the research angle is a focus of Science News, we have a county science fair, and right now it's on hold. And we have an astronomy research opportunity with West Virginia University that a couple of years ago, one of our kids decided he wanted to get into the Pulsar Search Collaboratory. So we're keeping that going. And then we also are connected through the Gavirt JPL out in Pasadena, California. And that was through an in-service that was offered down at Dulles Airport in Virginia with JPL personnel. And so we've tried to keep those two things going. And then also we have a local airport and analytical lab. And sometimes kids can get internships over there through the work connection from school. So those are just a variety of the things that our kids can go on to do within the local community. And these are some of the points of connection that I have used already in the last couple of semesters once I started to need other focus besides textbook and the conventional means to contact the kids and develop some enthusiasm. The materials fabrication that was a really good opportunity that dovetailed nicely with our astronomy club, which I also advise. That was last fall that we could actually do an uplink with the space shuttle video right into class time. And then the biotech and environment is also a topic that lends itself to the cross-disciplinary with the school farm. So we can go back out to Tamanasakta and then back into the classroom and then connect it to research articles. And that's important now, especially because we can't always do labs. We've been prohibited from doing labs since last year. The other focus I use is instrumentation and methods in my classes. That's pretty heavy for physics. And I like to get them a variety of primary sources and technical writing because they don't always get that opportunity in the classroom or in any of their English classes. And many of the kids say they want to go into engineering or science. So I try to use as much technical writing as I can. So I use these primary sources that are attached to the articles in Science News, since I find often the problem in high schools is that you don't have a university subscription or access to get to primary research. So this um, publication at least lets me get a hold of the author. And in many situations so far that I've contacted the author, they've given us either reprints or permission to photocopy. So I can actually use the primary articles. And then looking at the data and where it comes from, and then how to use citations correctly are the other things that I focus on using the Science News as a springboard, I guess you could say. This is one that I used back in the fall. It was one that came in Anna's Friday email. And then I went and further put together some lessons about Apollo Soyuz, since I was raised during that era. And I have firsthand things. I actually had a little cardboard punch out from the gas station from 1968 or 9, and I brought that into school and shared it with the kids so that we could see the original, what do you want to say, public interest advertisement for the Apollo Soyuz mission. And this article lent itself very well because in the associated study guide, there were several angles you could take going out from this. You could look at the hostility of space to life. You could also look at gas laws, pressure and temperature and volume at different situations in the cosmos, I guess, because not everything is cut out for humans or bacteria. And then also we discussed in physics the speed that they had to go to stay in orbit and what things would be like in getting up to that speed and staying at that speed and docking at that speed. And then we went through the tracking stations with Heavens Above and the daily observations. And then we also linked another unit that was in the same study guide, the fruit punch and foam handling liquids in space. And that left us jump off into some other material sciences angles, which I'll come back to later. The second article that I'd like to focus on was about this infrared camouflage, which dovetailed really nicely in between material science and measuring temperature in different methods or by different methods, which I do in class with physics. We talk about the emissivity of materials based on their surface texture, the color, the actual reflectivity, and the depth of the whatever's applied to a surface. And this is one of the articles that was referenced, and I contacted this Mikhail Katz, and he gave me permission to use the article. I had a friend in another university who could get me a copy of it, and he gave me permission to photocopy. So this is what we looked at and how materials can be altered in the temperature that they show from a distance in different wavelength regions, and simply because of the coating that's put on it. And that sort of plays right into emissivity. And this was one of the labs that we had been running for a couple of years. That is part of a consortium. Gettysburg College services about 4 counties to provide equipment on a rotating basis as you request it. And it's all over the state of Pennsylvania, but this is our local university that hooks up to us. And these labs are set up with the science standards that came before NGSS. And then these were the 3 methods that we had conventionally looked at. The glass thermometer and the IR was used down in the kitchen. So we talked to the cooks in the kitchen, and then we had the thermocouple from Vernier. And then we tied this into measuring emissivity with different coatings that would change the way that the light interacts with the surfaces. This is another materials testing that came in light of the foam and the fruit punch in different conditions. We did it all on Earth. We didn't try to alter the conditions, but we took gelatin and then we tested it for solubility in different materials and different conditions of temperature, pH, and salt content. And then we looked at compression and extension with force meters and measuring mass with an inertial balance, and saw how putting a jello on there that was, or a gel that was not a rigid material, affected the period of the oscillations. So all this kind of thing can be reinforced and made more interesting by having articles that the kids can read that relate to it, and then discussing how those things are related to the lab that's in front of you on the bench. It also lent itself, in just the October 10th issue alone, Lisa Grossman had 3 separate articles that were in the same magazine in a little cluster of space type things. The fast radio bursts, which are mentioned in the Pulsar group out of West Virginia, one of the premier scientists that investigate those works down there. And then the dark matter, which kids are fascinated by. And then the solar system formation, that comes into chemistry class when you start talking about stellar emission spectra and how these emissions come from different atoms at different stages in a star's life. And the majority of these things, since I don't teach astronomy, there's another person teaching that. I'm the advisor for the astronomy club, so I maintain all the contacts with the universities and JPL, and then I put the links up for the kids to look at. So this feeds directly. These articles were something that the kids could access, even though our clubs aren't meeting. And the Science News gave us the ability to have those primary articles right at our fingertips to put up onto the learning management system, or the links to them, so that we could discuss them in the astronomy club chat, whatever they call it, the group discussion forum. Here's a summary of some of the things I just went over. I'm not going to read it to you, but the main thing that is really important is that you can access things like Anna and her associate, whose now name fails me right out of my mind, but the database that they have for guides and pre-made lesson plans, if you need an idea in a hurry and you have something that either isn't going to work, or it fell through, or you want to add something after a student generated a question and you want to reply to it using some primary source, you could go right to the searchable database, type in what it is you're interested in or what the students are interested in, and then post it right into the learning management system, or give the kids a link in class face-to-face and they can look at it from there. So that fluidity of access to the material is what I find really beneficial to both myself and for the kids to be able to access it. And the final slide, of course, is the credits. This is the Gettysburg Advancing Science News, high school, and that's it. I'll hand it over to Stephanie.
My name is Stephanie Jones. I'm going to be talking to you all about some ways to integrate literacy in your classroom. All of the handouts or materials and resources that you see in the presentation will be available along with the presentation after. And everything's through Google Drive, so you should be able to access it very easily. We're going to start off with just a quick kind of like opener activity, and this is something that you can use to introduce a new phenomena or reinforce a phenomena that you've already worked on in class. So this is called What Do You See, What Do You Wonder? And the concept is to present the students with an image or images that they'll either encounter later in the unit, or just to kind of get their brains warmed up and ready for the next topic. And this routine uses observation, and it gives a really good springboard for the kids to start thinking more deeply. While you can use current events like this in Atlanta, you can also use science pictures like anatomy and physiology. And this requires the students to take notice and to observe an image or object before trying to interpret it. Here's an additional example of what do you see, what do you wonder? Allegedly, your brain can hold about 7 pieces of information for about 30 or so seconds. And if that's not repeated, if the terms or words or concepts aren't repeated, it disappears. The more you repeat, the firmer it stands in your memory. So the first few seconds of encoding information is crucial to determining whether or not something is going to be perceived and recalled later. So what do you see? What do you wonder? For this particular image, well, I'm sorry, this one is in Atlanta, and this was a couple weeks ago, but it was voting related. And then this is a really great image for environmental science or food webs, and you have the kids kind of look at the image and utilize vocabulary to tie in some of the concepts that they might not be familiar with or might be familiar with. So in the classroom, especially online these days, it's difficult to establish norms. And one of the places that that has suffered is in our small groups. So a good way to facilitate that with online literacy integration is allowing your students different rooms to pick from, and that gives them some autonomy in their learning. And it gives you the ability to make breakout rooms, whether it's through Zoom or Meets or what have you. And the kids can go in and all read the same story or work on different activities in an environment that's conducive to their learning. So I start out by having the kids choose which color door they would like. And it goes from blue with teacher-led to all the way to green, where they work quietly by themselves. And they just put it in the chat. So what I'd like to talk to you today, I know I might have breezed through the first couple of activities, but we're going to integrate literacy using science news in schools or science news for students. And I'm going to give you a couple of techniques and tips on how to do that. We're going to use my Unpacking the Standard worksheet, and this is something that I feel benefits both the instructor, your teachers, or the students so that they know what exactly is expected of them. I have a current event template along with claim evidence reasoning. Claim evidence reasoning is just a really great way to have the kids learn how to pick apart certain literatures, or excuse me, pick apart certain aspects of literature, like citing sources or finding evidence, and apply it in their reasoning. And then I'm going to show you how to make brace maps and utilize imagery in the text. And all of this is very easily scaffolded. But lastly, we're going to have the kids get up and go outside. It's imperative that they get some time away from screens, and it's very easy to do that as well. So with Unpacking the Standard, basically you can take whatever your actual standard is, whether it's your next gen, if you're aligned to next generation science standards, or if you use state specific standards. I know in Georgia, we basically took all of the next generation science standards and just like reworded them. But what you can do is take your standard that you're covering. So you're going to take the specific standard and then just put it word for word at the top, and then kind of brainstorm and work through some skills and concepts that the kids are going to utilize when they're learning and mastering the standard. So this is just the top of the worksheet, not filled in, and the students will know like the concept that's going to support the standard, what they're going to be able to do, and then their level of thinking, along with vocabulary, and then what's the end game of this standard. I know that I tend to introduce my students to Bloom's and depth of knowledge, and that's just because I feel like if the students are better able to understand how questions are posed or the level that they're performing, I think they're able to make links to other concepts very easily. So I know this might look a bit busy, but just very quickly, This is a chemistry standard, and the students would be required to obtain, evaluate, and communicate information about the use of modern atomic theory and periodic law to explain the characteristics of atoms and elements. So that's the standard verbatim. So the skills and concepts, what we do, the kids, read the standard, and then we go through and figure out, okay, well, what does this mean? What do you need to be able to do by mastering the standard? So they would need to be able to construct an argument, build a model, and read and interpret data. And so you just go through the standard and pick it out with the students. Not only are you helping them learn the language, but you're giving them the tools to feel confident. So the students will be able to basically look at more conceptual aspects of the standard and break them down so that they're not as overwhelming and daunting. They'll be able to demonstrate mastery by using the periodic table, and then finally the depth of knowledge or the conceptual aspects, it'll tie together. The vocabulary is more of a way to remind the kids to get into the habit of using some of the vocab terms that they'll see in the unit. And then lastly, the summative assessment is the model creation. So at this point, I'm assuming you're already familiar with, okay, I'm going to break down the standard and my kids are fine. Let's move on to tying in science news for students with a current event. So I use science news for students as a blanket resource. There's a worksheet for this as well. The current event template asks the kids to utilize only science news in high schools as their source. They can pick whichever topic that they'd like. The date of the article and the due date, along with the web address, are all fine for, it's got such a huge wealth of information that I don't mind if they take an article from a couple of years ago. The title and the author help get the kids into the habit of citing sources and recognizing, giving credit, which I know a lot of our kids have, they struggle with plagiarism, and I think it's just because it's easy. And by giving them practice, they're able to kind of cross-curricularly apply some of their knowledge. So after picking an article, the students utilize the article, they read it, and I know at the bottom of Science News and Students, Science News for Students, they have vocabulary, and so the kids can use that vocabulary in their answers. I encourage it. So the scientific explanation asks them to take at least 6 sentences and talk about the branch of science, or explain what that specific science or topic studies and how that applies to what you read. And I always ask them to pretend that they are talking to somebody who has never heard of that topic or branch of science before. I ask them to kind of Fisher Price it. And then lastly, the bottom section of the worksheet asks them to use claim evidence reasoning. Claim evidence reasoning is a really great way to kind of introduce the scientific method, but in a way that isn't overwhelming. So they take the claim, explain what the article is trying to convey or explain, and a lot of times we have them look at the titles of the articles. They pull data or evidence from the article, whether it's in-text citations or sentences. And then lastly, they apply why they read that article and how they can utilize that information in the future. And on Science News for Students, there is a readability level, so it's very easy to tailor certain articles to small groups if you need to. One of the next techniques that are really, really great to use when it comes to integrating not only literacy, but science news for students is brace maps. And brace maps just help the kids organize their relationships of objects and then break it down for individual analysis. So here on the left, a student might have read an article about renewable energy. And so they are going to basically create a little mind map of sorts. and link concepts and vocabulary. One of the other ways that I like to integrate literature is by using imagery in the text. A lot of times, kids don't think about why the pictures are included, or, I mean, if they look at the pictures, they don't recognize, okay, well, this picture is included deliberately. It's not just filling space. And according to the dual coding theory, both verbal and nonverbal processing is essential for learning. So if you bring in those visual aspects and pair them with a deliberate examination of why it's being included, it helps them with their cognitive subsystems, and it allows them to have a deeper connection to the material. So this is just an example of a lab book, but you would pull an article from the website and ask the students, okay, well, what is the purpose of including this specific picture? And lastly, I like to get my kids up and away from the computer sometimes, have them, whether it's go find me a picture or go find me an example of some copper, or give me an example of a heterogeneous mixture. Have the kids select an article, and then after they read it, and they can discuss it in small groups, perhaps maybe no more than 4, but after those 4 in that group read the same article, they have to gather key terms and go outside and make those connections and bring those findings back to class to share out. So for this specific example, and this was on the site, I think the other day, but this is from Science News for Students. So bandages made from crab shells, speed healing. So right there, you have bandages that the kids could go find, or some substance that's going to help a person heal. And after the kids select the article, talk about it, they break for maybe 10, 15 minutes and then come back with not only a deeper understanding of the vocabulary, but additional ownership, because now they've taken that knowledge from sitting in front of the computer, gone and found something to better represent that, and then brought it back. And so you have that jigsaw effect where the kids are able to apply and share out. So this article mentions both fiber and polymers. And so this is a great way to connect the literature to the real world. I am done. That's where I'm at. I will make sure to include all of the worksheets, like the current event template, as well as the unpacking the standard and the breakout room, so that you can use them if you need to. Thank you.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Pradip Misra, and I teach in a small rural school in Arizona. For me, science news is really a great source of information, because what happens here, magazines can cost a lot. Internet is, pretty expensive. So having access to such a great resource is really useful. And everybody understands, whether you are a linguist or you are a scientist or you are a science teacher, vocab is so important. So here I use science news for 2 purposes. One is to increase the vocabulary for my kids, and the second one is for enriching their science learning experience through these articles. So if I look at here, there is a type of page on science news. Science news has scientists say, and here is an example of a word, body mass index. This word can be used in many purposes. This may be a new word for many students. So what we can do, we can start our lessons with this word. We can ask students, what is a body mass index? Now kids will be exploring the meaning of this word. They can go to science news and they can find how many ways it can be explained, in what context it can be used, how we calculate it. So there is a mathematics, so there is investigation, and one single word can be used in many contexts. It can be used in health sciences. It can be used in your applied mathematics. So that is there. There can be many students who don't like to read. So for them, there is a play button. So kids can click the play button and it plays the definition for them. They can see how to pronounce it and it explains the meaning of it. It explains the examples for it. So that is really a great tool for kids with reading difficulties. And then if kids scroll down, there is a list of related words. So not just this word, they can see many words related to this particular word. And that exactly gives them an idea that one word is connected to many words. It can be used in many contexts, and how science uses these words to explain many things. And here, if you see, there are many ways to find these words. So this is a link for scientists say your weekly word. And you can see A, B, C, D like that. So kids can search the words in an order. And here are some words starting with a like absolute zero. Now kids can have questions. What is an absolute zero? So if they click that, they see, absolute zero is in chemistry, it is in physics, same way as in acid. So kids get exact technical meaning of the word, and they also learn how to use that in their chemistry text. And here is how to enrich the vocab for the learning experience. Now, I'm just looking at this article, an ancient hippo-sized reptile. Now, it was a speedy beast. So this picture is really catchy. When kids, see this picture, they think about what is happening in this article. Now they read the article, they come across many words which are used in earth sciences. They are used in biology. And there are words which are connected to the current topics like CT scan. And these things not only tell students that this discovery is just about the dinosaur, it is an article about many techniques, many words which were used in doing this discovery. Just like here, I scroll down to the article and I'm seeing these words, CT scan. Students may know this thing, that there is a CT scan. Some might have gone for that too. But now here, they are looking at the CT scan. This technique is not used just in the medical sciences, but it can be used as well in the sciences like finding the structure of the fossil. And then here are again definitions: herbivore, juvenile, limb, mammal. These all related to different subjects like biology and environmental science. So one way of using these words is give a kid one word. Kid finds that word in the science article, and then he relates these words to many other words. That gives them an enriching experience in science. That is so important in this time. Kids have very small vocab these days, and that small vocab is is limiting their critical writing skills. So what happens? Kids want to write, but what happens? They lack the words. They don't use technical words to explain these scientific concepts. So this way, by using these science news, its articles, its vocab, we can give kids more vocab. They can expand their vocab, they can expand their knowledge, and they can use it in technical writing. Next one is here, that many current topics in textbooks, we have all this stuff, but trouble with the textbooks is they don't cover the latest discoveries. Science news certainly can fill in that area. And I always use current topics for extending the learning experience for my students. So in fact, it covers, science news covers almost all subjects. And as I teach many subjects, I see there is always a connection. If I'm teaching chemistry, chemistry is related to geology, and geology is related to biology. So all these things have common vocab. And kids, when they learn one vocab in, suppose, my chemistry class, and then they go to biology class and they use that vocab there. So that also shortens the time for learning. They have more time to learn more words. They don't have to spend, time on just one single word. And many times kids have to do in my class the research projects on a topic. Suppose I'm teaching a chemistry topic on hydrocarbons. So now these kids have to find a reliable source of information. Many times they just go for searching on Google, Bing, and so many search engines. And ultimately they waste so much time in finding the reliable source of information. And ultimately, when I look at the articles, their projects, I find that their citations are not accurate and the research may not, reliable, because there are so many sources and their information may be biased. So if they find a reliable source like Science News, they can find all this information on the current topics which are extended from their classroom topics. So that way their research projects are reliable, interesting, and I can cite them. I can see their citations and I can go to the source and verify the information. Just like here, I'm showing one example. In my environmental science class, students talk about the recycling process. And now here is one important topic which students generally overlook it. And if they see the world waste roughly a sixth of the food produced each year, they may be, surprised that it is not just the plastic, it is not just the aluminum. People are wasting, there's a lot of food wastage, and there are people going hungry. So these articles just enrich their experiences. Kids, get an idea that what is happening around them. And that is the aim of learning science. It is not, plastic has been talked about a lot. Aluminum has been talked about a lot. Paper we are talking about. But we are not looking at, the things which are even bigger, happening on a bigger scale, just like the food. And the trouble is, many people go hungry every day. And we are wasting so much food. So uh, that makes students curious that what is happening in our world and what exactly they can do. So before they throw away the cafeteria food, they think that, okay, this food has taken, so much time to grow. It has, taken time to be processed, and now we are just throwing it. So that is basically the source. And this source enriches their knowledge, it enriches their experience about the current topics. And then they try to become, good citizen. That's, my goal of teaching. And science news for students really help in that. And now here is another example. Can wildfires cool the climate? Many students always say the wildfires only heat the climate. They see wildfires create pollution. But there's another side. Wildfires can cool the climate. So this headline only can, make them curious. And then they go through the article. They find the evidences. What are the evidences that wildfires can really cool the climate? So these things I use for starting the discussions in the class. Students use these sources for, their research projects. And when they have to do a research project, they have to find a reliable source. And I tell them that Science News has great articles. It has, articles on the current topics. You can always cite them. You can always find information from them. And most of the time it is free. So that's the biggest deal. And here is again one example. Many my biology students do the projects on genetic disorders. And here is an example. Now kids learn from the book, that's great. But only trouble with them is that knowledge does not go too far. It is the textbook knowledge. When they search through these articles, then they develop a thinking. They try to explain that what exactly is happening around them. And they may find, situations where they have seen these people. So sharing this information with the class inspires other students to find newer articles, find new articles, new information about the projects they are doing. And I believe that investigative mind, curious mind is the inspiration for everybody. And so in all, I will say there are many video clips there. So those video clips are 2 minutes short, 1 minute short, like that. If you show a long video, kids feel sleepy. But these short video clips, like 1 minute, 2 minutes, can inspire students to research further. They want to go deeper into their studies. They want to cite these clips in their projects, and that enriches their learning experience and makes my job easier, because kids want to learn more science, and that is something I like to see and something kids wants to do. Otherwise, reading the book all the time makes them feel, okay, that's a heavy load. But watching these short video clips relates their experience with the textbooks, and that actually helps me and my students a lot. Thank you.